Welcome to episode 4 of Growing Guelph. Today I'm speaking to Kate Johnston, the executive director of Hillside Music Festival. I don't think Hillside requires too much of an introduction in Guelph. It's an iconic Guelph music festival. There's also a Hillside inside. Hillside's an institution, and Kate and I talk about what's made Hillside such a lasting and important part of the Guelph music scene, how it's led by volunteers, and how the entire festival really contributes to Guelph as a city. So I hope you enjoy the episode, and thanks for listening. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Nice to talk to you today.
Perfect. Well, I know I have some questions for you all about your role as executive director of Hillside. Is it called Hillside Festival? Hillside Music Festival?
Yeah, like a lot of these not-for-profit music festivals that have been around for decades, we have a legal name, Hillside Community Festival of Guelph.
Gotcha.
But of course, Hillside Festival would be sort of the most well-known name, in the community and wider region, and of course the Winter Festival, Hillside Inside as well.
Perfect. Well, before we jump into talking just about Hillside, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, how did you come to be executive director of the music festival?
Yeah, no, thanks so much. No, it's been, I absolutely love working for Hillside. It's just fantastic. Over 20 years, I've worked, in the not-for-profit field and for music organizations, in particular. I grew up in the town of Goderich, which is, just west and on Lake Huron there. And so, I grew up always participating in arts and music organizations and volunteering for things. And, sometimes I joke that I still have the same summer job that I had when I was 14, because that was working for a music festival. Mm-hmm. And I rose and, enjoyed working for, big events like that celebrated music and community. And for a time was the, director and artistic director of the Goderich Celtic Roots Festival. So it's a sort of a Celtic music and traditional music festival in Goderich. So I did that for about 15 years. And then, I went off and I moved to New Brunswick and was working. I kind of left the music field for a little bit prior to COVID and kind of through COVID. But then I really, really missed working in the music field, working in the, not-for-profit arts field. And so then, my partner and I were starting to look at, wanting to move back to Ontario to be near to our families. And I came across Hillside Festival, who were looking for a volunteer manager. So for the very, very first festival that was live after COVID, so in 2022, I came on as the volunteer manager, which was actually my very first Hillside. I'd never been to the festival before because my Celtic music festival was always like 1 week after or 2 weeks after. And so I always just sort of felt like I was too busy and I couldn't make it to Hillside. So my very first Hillside was the first post-COVID Hillside, which was like quite an amazing experience and a little overwhelming, as it was for so many festivals who were coming back after their first festival after that COVID-19 pandemic break. So that was my introduction to Hillside Festival, the organization. I worked for 2 years in that volunteer manager role. And then my predecessor, Marie Zimmerman, who had been the executive director for 14 years, she moved on to other opportunities. And it just felt like a great fit. They opened up the applications for the position. I applied, and I think it's the perfect time for me at this point, in my sort of arts administration career. And, I really care deeply about Hillside Festival, the organization, and, and the event itself is so interesting and unique and, such a celebration. And so I'm really thrilled to be part of it. And I feel totally supported by this really amazing organization.
That's great. Well, let me just say congrats on the role, getting the role of executive director. Hillside certainly is an iconic event within Guelph. I lived in Guelph. I went to school in Guelph over a decade ago, lived in Guelph a little bit after that. And then I moved back to the city 4 years ago. And I didn't attend my first Hillside until it was last summer. So summer of 2023.
You're a newbie just like me.
Yeah. I did get a pretty good experience of the festival, I think, because I volunteered. I was part of the sign crew. So we were installing signs, hammering the posts into the ground. And I think it was like the hottest weekend of the year. So grateful for that opportunity. And I've got the like very sweaty photos of my wife and I just like trying to keep it together, taking lots of water breaks. And it was a really great volunteer shift though, because obviously your duties are before and after the festival. So during the festival, we were just got to attend like anyone else. But I couldn't get over the whole experience about just how much Hillside was like a distillation of all of Guelph's best qualities and stereotypes kind of like down in one, like it to the point where, I've been to a couple music festivals and I've never seen recycling garbage food areas as clean as Hillside, and how everyone like takes the sorting of like, there's many different places to properly put all the utensils and all of the silverware, which is all being washed by a team of dishwashers behind the scenes. Um, like people really respect that and care about that, and like systems like that are all well and good, but if everyone just walks up and says and like doesn't care,
Exactly.
so it's reflective of Guelph as a community that we're able to operate like a festival like Hillside. Um, and what does that mean to you in terms of uh being part of an iconic event like that? Like there's a lot of, like I said, about the city's uh the pride and like the personality of the city being represented in a festival.
Yeah, I mean, so I completely agree that both that Hillside Festival is a total extension of I feel like the cultural like the culture of Guelph. Like it's sort of like chicken and the egg. Like a festival like Hillside could really only be grown out of a place like Guelph and the kind of people that live in Guelph and the things that they care about and the things that they hold dear. But at the same time, I think that the existence of that festival, really it circles back and it helps, further that culture. So, but I mean, like, in terms of what draws me to or what makes me excited about leading, a festival or an iconic festival, like Hillside. I mean, you have already mentioned it that Hillside is absolutely, known to be, really one of the greenest festivals in Canada for many reasons, and very much including that, that the four stream trash and recycling and compost and dishes management system that we have, the on-site dishwashing, all of those systems that we have in place that are, to deal with a lot of the, one of the biggest problems of, huge, large gatherings of people, especially outdoors, is, how do we deal with all, single-use plastics and all this garbage that is meant to be used once, and decades of Hillside organizers, volunteers, and staff have been working on those problems and have been being really ingenious and trying to design solutions to them. And so yeah, so I mean, I just think Hillside is very it has that sort of sustainable and community oriented core that really leads it through everything that it has done over the last few decades. And it's just a sort of all about that sustainability, all about that community, and all about that sort of welcoming nature.
That's a good point about the circular nature of like Hillside isn't just Hillside because Guelph is Guelph. Guelph is Guelph because of Hillside. Like the two influence each other. So Hillside's often seen as a pillar of Guelph's art and music scene. How do you see the festival contributing to the growth and development of our cultural identity?
Yeah, again, so I would say that it's very circular that
Mm.
Guelph has really shaped Hillside, and then Hillside in turn shapes Guelph. I mean, I think that Hillside offers a lot of opportunities for partners and a lot of opportunities for support to the local sort of arts and culture scene. Just as it is now, as it is a large established festival, presenting local bands, offering local musicians and regional musicians the opportunity to perform. We offer songwriting courses and different musical and artistic courses throughout the year. Workshops at the festival, but then also year round, including at our winter festival festival, Hillside Inside. Even, just presenting, every year we offer a paid commission to design the artwork for the festival. That's something a lot of festivals either keep their same iconic artwork year to year, but, Hillside merely made the choice that they want to commission an artist every year to create something that's new and identifying. So I think all those things, now that Hillside is over 40 years old, all those things contribute to artists and arts workers and arts practitioners able to, further their own work and practice through the support of a big organization like Hillside Festival.
That's great. I think it's apparent just being there how much the community gets back and how much it gives back at an event like Hillside, like the supplementary events outside of just the music acts, which is support in and of itself, but like you said, the workshops that you won't see anywhere else. So I know Hillside is well known for its focus on sustainability, community building. As executive director, how do you plan to continue strengthening those values and expanding the festival's reach?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because, I feel like sometimes you don't often hear the idea of values, in the same sentence as talking about expanding the reach and, how do we communicate ourselves and how do we market ourselves? Within the organization, Hillside is a not-for-profit organization. We have a volunteer board of directors who oversee the quite modest number of staff that we have. It's very important to that board and to staff that, we strengthen the values of the organization, like the values of sustainability and the values of collaborating with our community by letting them kind of inform everything that we do, checking in with them all the time, as we're designing new initiatives and new projects, having that moment to just check in and say to yourselves, does this serve these values? Does it push them further down the road, or maybe it doesn't so much, and like having the chance to have those conversations. And what's really, and this is something I love about this organization, and it's true of a lot of not-for-profits, is that really trickles down from the board and staff on down to into the volunteer leadership. Hillside operates with leadership volunteers called coordinators. And so we have over 60 coordinated areas. So like every area of the festival, including the own sign installation crew that you participated in, would have a volunteer leader or a few, depending on the size of it. And, there's actually, I think in 2024, there were 99 leadership coordinators. And so, all of these people are embodying the values of Hillside in terms of sustainability and in terms of wanting to build community. And every year there are 10 or 15 or 20 or 40 new ideas that they work on or they bring to staff. How can we improve this, or how can we make this more welcoming, or how can we, overcome this little challenge? And I think that Hillside has a very, open-minded and yes-oriented culture. Like there's, I think I hope that the volunteer leaders feel this as well, that, there's not too much of that, well, we don't really want to try something new because we've never done it that way before, that there's really sort of a lot of, willingness to experiment and try new things. And so I think that the festivals, reach is expanded by, expending energy and expending our time on working on those things that can help make the festival work better and help make it more welcoming and help making it more inclusive. And I think that just improves and expands the reach every year.
Mm-hmm. Having that community of dedicated volunteers must be so crucial and important. And the fact that I think people with those sorts of qualities tend to attract social circles of other people with those qualities. And then that's how like a true community of volunteers and people dedicated to the cause. And I know when I volunteered, a lot of the people I volunteered with were quite a bit younger than me. And then in talking to them, like Hillside was a generational festival for them. Like their parents brought them when they were kids, and now they're old enough that like it's just a given that they're going to go every year, and that volunteering is a big part of it. And I think that's always a good sign when people don't age out of going to the music festival. They just bring their families into it, and it becomes like a family affair. So in a recent episode of this podcast, I spoke to James Gordon, a Guelph singer-songwriter, former city politician, and he was also one of the festival's original founders, or at least was part of a founding team. He mentioned how proud he is of Hillside's legacy. In your view, how have you, in your role as an executive director and your role with Hillside before that, how have you learned to embody that that history, and what is the legacy of that history meant to you in terms of as you first went to Hillside and become more familiar with it? Um, like, have you had the chance to really dive into the extensive history of the festival?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I'm very open and upfront that I have been involved with Hillside since 2022. And I think Hillside does a really good job of balancing those sort of, those founding, not even just like like the literal founding members, but those folks who were at the festival in the 80s and in the 90s, and the people who are newcomers every year and are just discovering it for the first time. Because I think sometimes, again, a lot of not-for-profit music festivals, that have been around for a number of decades, there's that sort of danger of, falling into that it's kind of a closed society, that it's hard for new people to participate, whether that's as a ticket buyer or as a volunteer or as a musician. I think Hillside has over many years like worked really hard to make sure that the doors are still open and that there's still that the invitation is always there for new people to participate. And I think that, I mean, that's something that I have experienced my own self, coming on in 2022. Like I didn't find that there was this wall up of like, oh, well, if you don't already know how we do things here, then you're not, you'll never understand. Like there absolutely was no, sort of feeling like that. And I just think, yeah, I think that the community has worked really hard, and there sort of has been embodied with this ethos of, wanting to ensure that new people are being brought on, because then that's what contributes as well to sustainability for the festival. That makes sure that our volunteer leaders aren't all people who've been doing this since 1990 and they really are quite tired and wish they could do something else. There's a lot of like turnover and a lot of training of new generations of people, and I think that that's just it's a mark of the work and the care that's gone into that over decades, on the part of Hillside board staff and volunteers.
That's a great point about some of the potential pitfalls of being too, not community minded, but like you said, like a closed knit group where it's great to be part of, but from the outside it can be sort of impenetrable. I will say like Hillside doesn't have any of that. Like it feels like everyone who's there, and the people who know it best have like they have like an infectious excitement for it, and it's like they're greeting old friends, and they know about everything, and they're excited about the tradition and the legacy, but they're also excited for you to be there. And I mean the pejorative view is like a new person to the festival. Everyone is like, oh great, this is your first time, I'm so excited for you. So they're very um open and welcoming, and like you said, every year there should be new people going and experiencing it. And I think the fact that the festival hasn't been just catering to that original group of founders, and that every year it it's like the doors are open to a whole new generation that wants to discover it. So as someone who's you're fairly new to your executive director role, what are some of the challenges that you foresee, or maybe that you've already experienced, in keeping the festival's community-driven ethos alive while still navigating the logistics of a large-scale event and everything that has to go into it, and the T's that have to be crossed and the I's that dotted, and legal paperwork and insurance and everything like that that is essential?
Yeah, absolutely. Running anyone who's been involved in running sort of a large outdoor, event of any kind, not just music festivals, knows that, yeah, there's many, many logistics there. But again, like I would kind of turn that inside out a little bit, that to say that, the logistics of a large scale festival, like Hillside, like just wouldn't be possible, particularly as a not-for-profit organization, like without that community driven ethos. Like we could not do this, from the top down. Like we need that community buy-in and that support in order to have the festival survive and thrive like every year. Again, I think we're really talking a lot about volunteers. Hillside Festival is actually really unique. I talk a lot to my festival executive director peers across Ontario and actually across Canada. And Hillside Festival really it stands out in the Canadian music festival scene because of our volunteer program. We have about 1,500 volunteers every year. That alone is unprecedented of festivals of similar size to Hillside. But like many festivals are suffering and still suffering after COVID with kind of the loss of momentum in their volunteer programs. Like they just didn't get the volunteers coming back after COVID. They had a lot of longtime volunteers who'd been doing it for 20, 30 years, stepping out because they were finally like, I'm just too tired. I can't continue to do this. And Hillside, like we do not have that problem. We actually, we have a volunteer application, and we didn't place everyone who applied. Like we were having to turn people away, and that is, I just think that's a testament to the volunteerism spirit in Guelph, and of course, and like the long time, community support, as well as that. I think I really like how you put that, like that infectious enthusiasm of someone to say like, well, I volunteer for Hillside, and if you've never done that, let me tell you how. Let me tell you how you can do that, and invite you to take part in that. I think that sort of is part of the success of that volunteer program. So I don't think that we could navigate the logistics of such a large event in quite a remote area out there on Guelph Lake, in the Guelph Lake Conservation Area, without that sort of community support, the idea of that community volunteer program making everything possible. Because I think what a lot of people comment on when they come to Hillside is that it feels like there's care taken in many different areas, even if it's just that hand painted sign, or the funny quote that's on the inside of the porta toilets. All of those things are volunteer projects, and we couldn't, we simply, one staff person could just not do that. They could not physically accomplish all of that. We absolutely need that community behind the project.
Mm-hmm. It must be challenging for you to answer, like if you're speaking to other executive directors of other festivals and they say like, well, how do you get so many volunteers? Like, what's the secret? And it's like, well, I mean, there probably are things that you do to continue to foster that, but also some of the secret is like have 40 years of legacy of a volunteer-driven community, and I'm sure it's a real challenge for up-and-coming festivals and things trying to get started, especially if they don't have that big corporate backing and are trying to go the nonprofit route.
Absolutely. No, I totally know what you mean. Yeah, like I do think like there are things that we do with our in terms of fostering our volunteer program. There are things that are easy to suggest to other festivals. Even just having a staff person that is dedicated to managing the volunteers, as I was when I came on board with the organization. Not many festivals have that, and I think that speaks to the success of the volunteer program. This is such an important part of our operations that we will have a staff person dedicated to managing this. I think there's a lot of things in that area where things about policy, things about staff time and capacity for managing the volunteers that you can suggest. But then I try not to be like, well, just have a festival in a city like Guelph where everyone just loves it. Just do that. It's easy.
So Hillside's always promoted. Well, I should say, as far as I've been aware of the festival, it's been a event that promotes inclusivity and diversity. What are some of your goals in terms of broadening the festival's representation of different voices and artistic expressions?
Yeah, it's something that I so appreciate and am in awe of Hillside and its legacy in this regard. And of course, very much due to our artistic director, Samir Baijal, who has been the artistic director since 1998, I believe. And he's one of the longest running artistic directors in Canada. Hillside also, I think, when you compare it to other festivals in Ontario, other festivals in Canada, really presents one of the most diverse festival lineups. In any given year, our lineups are typically over 50% Black and Indigenous and people of color, and over 50%, women-led or female-identifying artists. And that is just not something that you see particularly with larger kind of like commercial festivals. And it's been very important to Hillside for decades, and you can see that in history. So, I think our goals as an organization are to continue to do that, to continue to support artists, of very diverse backgrounds and different artistic expressions. I think that our audiences tell us every year by their attendance, and also they tell us in person and through our surveys that they really enjoy that. They come to experience something new and to see artists collaborate with each other in a brand new way. So that's really important to our Hillside audiences, and we absolutely want to continue to do that. I think that we're what we are working on and what we want to continue to work on is to, engage more in bringing a more representative audience to Hillside. That we want to see, Guelph is diverse and is diversifying more every year, and we want to see that in the audience at Hillside. And it's something that we've identified as something that we want to work on, and we have goals surrounding, identifying community ambassadors to help us, issue that first invitation. We really, from talking to people who attend and talking to first time attendees, we know that sometimes it's like you really need that personal invitation. You might even need to be asked twice or three times by someone that you know and trust in your life in order to make it like really attractive to come to the festival. And so we're really, sort of deeply engaged in that work, and how we can reach out to community members in Guelph and abroad, because of course we do attract lots of people from 40 kilometers to 100 kilometers away. And that's the work that we're really doing in terms of bringing community and diversity to Hillside Festival.
That's great. Yeah, I think so I've gone to other music festivals, and I keep an eye out on the lineups for them, and it is sort of true that the music festival space is a little bit it's oversaturated, and in a given season you'll see a lot of the same artists, really good artists that you'd probably want to see play. But Hillside definitely focuses on, like, you're not going to recognize every band within the lineup, but you're going to want to, like, you're going to want to explore those bands afterwards, and you're going to want to like look them up, and you'll get some experiences that you didn't know that you would have enjoyed or that you would have wanted going into the festival, which I think is really important, as opposed to just sort of, checking a box of like artists that you have on a list to see at some point. Those artists, they'll still tour. You'll probably still be able to go see them in Toronto and pay $150 for a ticket. But Hillside gives you a lot of artists that might be outside of the typical music you listen to. Again, I'm speaking to you, listener, when I say you. But yeah, so we've been talking a lot about the Guelph community and its support of the festival, but can you share a little bit of details on that, about how the local Guelph community has supported the festival over the years, and how do you see that relationship evolving as Hillside continues to grow?
Yeah, I think again, the first answer to that question is, of course, the volunteer program. As we've been talking
Mm,
about, people from the Guelph community come out and support every year by participating in the volunteer program. Although many, many people participate as volunteers who come from quite a far distance away, like, from that 40 kilometers away, from 100 kilometers away, from other countries and other provinces. So that's absolutely part of it as well. But I think that, Hillside is absolutely, connected to the community in Guelph, whether that's the, community of artists, and artists and musicians and sort of arts practitioners, and connected to the business community. We have over 40 businesses that support us, either with, a modest cash donation, or even just, in-kind services. That's something that we absolutely couldn't, be operating without, if we weren't able to, have partners who help us build the festival site, partners who help us market, partners who help us at our office space there on Woolwich Street in Guelph. So I think that, as, we continue into the future and continue to grow, and in many ways, continue to recover from COVID, because that was, of course, very, very challenging for many, many not-for-profit and for-profit live music industry associations and organizations. That support and those partnerships are just going to be more and more important. Like, we are not awash in massive grants and funding from the federal and provincial levels, although there are important grants there who do support us and that we're very grateful for. But those things they're not tending to grow at this time. They're either staying the same or they're being reduced. So that sort of support of the community, support of businesses, and support of people is just going to be more and more important sort of going forward.
hmm a good reminder that voting matters, and even though it doesn't always feel like it, the elected officials do make decisions that do have real world impacts to the funding of arts and culture that we all enjoy. So, looking ahead, how do you envision Hillside Festival's role in Guelph's future? Are there any new programs or partnerships you're excited to explore, or that will, hopefully continue to elevate the festival's presence in the city?
Yeah, I think that, I foresee Hillside, continuing to be an important part of the cultural fabric of Guelph. And partnering with, with all the other festivals that, contribute so immensely to, making Guelph, such an amazing place to live and also to visit. Having like lots of different festivals at different times of year and lots of venues that are offering art and music. I think that that's all, I think Hillside Festival operates in a partnership with all of those other organizations. I think that we we're excited. We're excited for the future, and we're excited to plan and offer new programs. As I kind of mentioned, like adapting and recovering from COVID is still a challenge. You might have heard me say this already, but it costs about 40% more to put on a festival than it did in 2019. And that's just simply just due to the inflation and the cost of everything, increasing the cost of artists and hotels and transportation. Just as we're all feeling that, Hillside Festival is feeling that as well. So balancing our budgets and making sure that we're remaining financially sustainable is a challenge, and is sort of our biggest priority is to make sure that we are surviving and thriving year to year, and perhaps that means being a little bit conservative in planning big new initiatives and big new projects. We're really excited to do the 16th annual Hillside Inside, which is going to be coming up this January, the very last day of January, and into the first weekend of February this winter. And that actually is going to have some new elements to it, which we're excited to announce. But I can't share more about that right now. But so those sort of those small projects that we can do, elements of presenting Hillside Festival that are familiar but also exciting to people. I think that's what we're sort of excited to explore, and find ourselves on good footing for the years to come.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great to hear. I think, like you said, the live event space is extremely challenging, and survival at all is an indication of thriving, I guess, in some cases. Like you said, surviving the COVID years and not just surviving that, the inflation. And I was going to ask if our listeners could, if there was anything to check out in particular for Hillside Inside. So if they're listening to this end of November into December, it sounds like they should keep an eye on Hillside website, and that there'll be some announcements. When do the tickets for that typically go on sale?
They'll likely go on in early December.
Okay.
But hillsidefestival.ca, our website, as well as our social media channels, will be the best place to catch all the information about any announcements there. And we also highly encourage everyone to sign up for our newsletter. We have a great newsletter that's often full of sharing other events that are going on in Guelph, maybe even offering some, discount codes or things like that for partner organizations and events. So you can sign up for our newsletter on the website, and we highly encourage that as well.
Mm-hmm. As someone who gets that newsletter, I will say, don't be afraid to give your email address to Hillside. They're not a big corporation that's going to try to sell you something like 10 times a day. The emails are good. The messaging's good. And kudos to your social media team, because like the photos and the just like the nonprofit, community driven ethos of Hillside really drives through on to every part of it, including like the social media, where you just kind of feel good about seeing it, and you're not feeling like, oh, it's another big corporation trying to get me to spend money with them. And so kudos to your social media team, because I see nothing but things I like on there.
That's good. Well, I thank you, and I'll pass that right along back to our volunteer. We have volunteer photographers and videographers every year who participate with us, and they completely capture the spirit of the event. And I'm always, as someone who I cannot take a picture worth my life. So I'm so in awe of the work that our photographers and videographers can do in capturing sort of the whole feeling and the whole spirit of being at Hillside. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So if you're listening to this and you have never attended Hillside, your only experience is listening to this audio, go at least check out those photos. It's not as good as attending, obviously, but it's maybe slightly better than hearing us just speak about it. And you also had a video that you came out with, like, I think it was last year, like celebrating the history of Hillside. That was great as well.
Yeah, that lives on our website as well if you want to check out those. It's a wonderful 40-year retrospective of the festival.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for talking to me today, Kate. Really appreciated it.
Great. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Growing Guelph. I've been your host, Jordan Sloggett. Be sure to subscribe to us on social media, on your favorite podcast app, and if you have a recommendation for a future guest you'd like me to speak to, you can reach out to me at growingguelph@gmail.com.